Welcome to Planet Poet Words in Space. I'm your host, Sharon Israel, and it's my great pleasure to welcome Bruce Weber and Jan Alexander to the show. Bruce is the producer and Jan is the coordinator of Whirlwind, the 2025 Hudson Valley New Year's Day spoken word performance extravaganza. And Bruce and Jan are here to tell us about this great event and also, since they're writers, to read from their writings. Hi, Bruce. Hi, Jan.
Hi, Sharon. Hi, Jan.
Thank you both for being here. And before we, to begin, I'm going to read both your bios. This is Bruce's bio first. Bruce Weber is a poet and historian of American art. His poetry has been published widely in magazines, both in print and online, and he is the author of 6 books of poetry, including These Poems Are Not Pretty, with Jan McLaughlin, How the Poem Died, The First Time I Had Sex with T.S. Eliot, Poetic Justice, The Breakup of My First Marriage, and most recently, There Are Too Many Words in My House, published by Rogue Scholars Press in 2019. For 25 years, Bruce has organized the alternative New Year's Day spoken word performance extravaganza in New York City. Upon settling in Saugerties in the Hudson Valley, he moved the event, where it will be held next year, the 1st of January 2025, at the local in Saugerties with the support of the Saugerties Arts Commission. Currently, Bruce and his wife Joanne curate the multidisciplinary series Dialogues for the Ear and Eye on the first Tuesday evening of the month at the 9W Diner in Saugerties. Wow. And now, Jan, I'm going to read your biography for everyone. Jan Alexander is the author of the novel Miss Ming's Guide to Civilization, Regal House Publishing, September 2019, a fractured utopian tale that was a Leapfrog Fiction Prize semifinalist. Her short fiction and reviews have appeared in the Chicago Tribune and literary magazines including Atticus Review, Everyday Fiction, Flash Fiction, Guernica, Silver Birch Press, and 34th Parallel. Her flash fiction stories have received 2 honorable mentions and a Pushcart Prize nomination. She has written about business and travel for many publications and taught Chinese history at Brooklyn College. She is also the author of Getting to Lama, a novel, and co-author of Bad Girls of the Silver Screen, a look at Hollywood's portrayal of prostitutes through the ages. Well, both of you have very impressive bios, and you are really wonderful to produce and coordinate this event that is really very important for the Hudson Valley. And I say I'm very happy to be part of that. I'll be reading for my 3 minutes on the 1st. So that's very exciting for me. And
Yeah, have you?
thank you. Let's just start. Just give us a little bit of information, the day, the New Year's Day, what times.
So
And-
it's on January 1st, which is a Wednesday this year.
Oh,
It's at the local, which is at 16 John Street in Saugerties. If people know Saugerties at all, they might know the Orpheum movie theater, which has been there for over 100 years, I think. Was a legitimate theater at one point, and it's basically across street from the Orpheum. And we're really pleased to have it here. You know, this is not just an isolated thing where we do our thing and don't care about anybody. We really care about the community. We care about our town, and we really see Saugerties growing culturally. In this phase of its history, it's been around a long time, but in its current history, we're trying to help. And to bring also a light on the local, which is a place that focuses most in terms of the music on world music and jazz, contemporary jazz. And it's been open, I guess it's just maybe a little over a year.
yeah, it's a beautiful space also.
Yeah, and it was transformed from what it was. There was a mystery underneath the paint. And the mystery underneath the paint was including stained glass windows. So it's going to be a revelation to just be in there on that day. And we're so, and you know, it made it possible to do this was the Saugerties Arts Commission. stepped forward and gave us a grant to allow us to do this. We didn't know if we'd be able to keep it in Saugerties. We did it right, White Feather Farm the year before, which is out on 212 in Saugerties. And last year we did it at the old Newberry space, which is an artisan space. And because the Saugerties Arts Commission stepped forward and gave us the funding, we were able to do it again in Saugerties, and hopefully that'll continue in the future.
That's very exciting. So
It's
2024.
really fun when we have it right in the village, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a gratitude grant. I love the name of the grant. And the event is free to everybody who wants to come in and
Well,
remember?
it's always been free, and when I started this back in 1995 in the East Village, and it still meant the same way. It's an opportunity for people who might not hear writers or know that much about writing in the community. And now this year we have almost a quarter of our participants are musicians, to really get to know, having to pay $20 or $30 to be able to come and just avail themselves. So we still do it for free. We do ask people, if they can, to bring books for people in prison at the Green Correctional Prison, north of us, and also to bring food for the Saugerties Food Pantry. We're also they asked us this year to say, if people have toothbrushes or toothpaste, that's a need that they have.
That certainly is. Certainly is. It's great. And beer and wine are available for purchase, which is also nice to know.
Yeah, they just started that. They've been waiting for their liquor license, so they got it. There's also food there, but of course there's food at various places in Saugerties on the 1st. So, you can come for a couple of hours, go get a hamburger, come back and hear more.
Yeah, it's really, I love it. It's sort of like the old operas, when you used to go to the opera, you can go in and out, have dinner, come back, and it's a sort of an interesting flow. How did you decide this year on 110 participants?
Well, it's always been the number in terms of the curatorial aspect. It's always 18. So everybody gets 3 minutes. So times 20, if you times 20 by 3, it's 60. But you need a little time. People might go over. You need time for people to introduce the writers. We collect as many bios as we can, and we try. There is a different host every hour, and they are given bios to try to read to get people on. So that's been the formula, 18 an hour. So if you times 8 by 6, that's about the number you get, about 110. But it's open too. Anybody can perform. We've never excluded anybody. This is meant to embrace everyone, and everybody who comes has an opportunity to do it. They may have to wait a while. We try to get new people on in the open at the top of every hour. That's a formula we've been doing for a few years, but we don't exclude anyone.
So at the top of the hour, it's sort of an open mic situation?
Yeah, it could be 2 or 3 people. It could be 1 person. It could be 5. It depends on where we are in the evening. And I can't say it'll be this year. You never know what things change, but that's the goal, is to try to do a few at the top of the hour.
It's a very complicated process, and you're saying it's 3 minutes, but a performing time, right? Because musicians have to set up, the sound people have to work their magic on everybody. So that's is it the job of the hourly host to make sure things are going smoothly?
Well, we have a staff of people that help. Not only Jen, but my wife Joanne, and Dale Wise, and Allison Koffler, and Cheryl Rice, and Guy Reed, and Luanda. What's Luanda's last name? Peters. And Robin Hager. I think I got everybody. I hope. Don't yell at me if I forgot somebody.
Most of them have been on my show
since September. We have usually a monthly meeting, but we're in touch a lot. So we're all prepared to do what we have to do. And some of the people have been here more than this year. I mean, Luanda's our new staff member, but Cheryl's been with us a couple of years and Janet has been here. So, we've worked this out and
And
uh,
Joanne does the sets for the.
on as we speak.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
It's
We'll be working on it for
goes
2
fast.
weeks. It'll be 2 or 3 weeks of work.
It's such a community project too, and I'm very happy that most of the people you mentioned, except Luanda and another person, have been on the show. So
Yeah.
it's a real, because I try to get people poets from the Hudson Valley and
Mhm.
from the Catskills, and then closer to Delhi and New York City. And so it's a real coming together. I find it very important. I think it's unique, and I even know somebody who's going to be performing in the city at the current
Mhm.
alternative festival.
Right. Yeah. So, this was a dilemma when decided to move it up here because we had moved up here full time in 18, but I
Mhm.
did it on 19. I did it right. 19, I did it in the city, even though we were living up here. And then I tried hard to just pass it along to somebody to make sure it would survive. Which wasn't easy. The staff I had there has basically been running this thing. They didn't do it every year because of COVID, but they're now
Sure,
back doing it live.
And it got its start in the Hudson Valley during the time of COVID, right?
that's right.
It's on
And
YouTube.
Patrick, there are some people who are like Patrick Hammer, who lives up here now. He used to perform in the one in the city. And so there are some people who we know in the city, writers who are up here, like Sparrow and things like that.
Sure, sure. And so, Jan, is this the first year you've coordinated the programming?
No, this is actually the third year. And it's been a real honor and a lot of fun to work on it. But I've worked, on the staff, planning it months in advance. It impressed me from the beginning, with how much planning went into it, and how Bruce and Joanne seem to have it really down pat, just what we need to do. But I will also be reading. I will also be there running around on the day of, trying to help
Sure.
make sure that everything's working okay. And
But you've coordinated. You've been the coordinator with Bruce. Well, Bruce is the
well,
producer,
yeah.
and that's a big job. And how did you two know each other?
Oh, well, there's a big arts community in Saugerties, and I was thinking about that. I actually met Bruce through Joanne, his wife, and Joanne and I became friends after meeting, several years ago when we participated in a float for Shout Out Saugerties, one of the other arts organizations in Saugerties,
Mhm.
on the 4th of July, on a 95-degree 4th of July day. And somewhere along the line, I met Bruce, and I read in one of the New Year's Day events, when it was being recorded and put on YouTube, and
Mhm.
then Bruce asked me to be involved in the coordination, and I said,
And here
"Oh,
you
that
are.
sounds exciting."
Yeah, we recorded, in 21 and 22, a Greenkill, um,
Mhm.
at a wonderful space in David Shell's space in
Michelle.
Kingston. We were able to coordinate people coming there, and basically in the month of October at different nights for certain times. We didn't even have people coming, people would knock on the door and David would let them in, and the next person would be at the door because of
Yeah,
COVID.
COVID. Okay. Yeah.
We managed somehow to do it for 2 years. David was really remarkable in helping us keep it alive. And he's been
So
been
complicated.
involved with us. He's done the sound. This year he's not, but he's done the sound with us. If people
Yes.
don't know Greenkill, you ought to, because
Yeah.
he's done, I mean, over the years now, I think it may be like 6 or 7 years, David has just built up because he's had much literature and theater and music, and on his website you could hear stuff, and
Oh, it's yeah.
nobody's done anything like David has accomplished here culturally. I think I can almost speak for the whole Hudson Valley to say the body of work that he's
Mhm.
managed to do, and it's all archived too. or a lot of it's art.
Yeah, my husband and I, Robert Cucinotta, we were a poetry soundscape duo. We performed
Yeah, of
last
course.
year, and we did a whole thing at Greenkill, and the quality of the audio was just phenomenal. And it's a little tiny space, sort of in the little industrial area
Yeah.
of Kingston. So it's a gem.
Yeah.
It's a thing.
229 Greenkill Avenue, if people don't know.
Thank you, David Shell. Well, you two are writers, so I would like you to read a piece, and then we'll go back to talking about the event. Bruce, would you like to begin? And
Sure. I mean, I was trying to figure out what to read, but so Joanne and I last 2 years in January, right after the New Year's show, got in the car and went south for a month, and basically didn't have a total idea where we were going to go. We would book a hotel room like the night before, a couple of nights before. So this is a poem, and there's also so this past January, I wrote every day, and there'll be a chapbook that's going to come out called Southern Swoon, hopefully this spring.
great name.
About 22 of the poems that I wrote. And this is from the first trip. And I'm sure I wrote it right at the end of the trip because it refers to things that happened on the trip. It's called Travel South. This coffee tastes delicious. It's a return to flavorful mornings full of robust offerings and the kindness of well-regarded beans from the fields of Colombia. I'll drink now to the deep panorama of Oklahoma, the stillborn heat of Alabama, the crackling crawfish of Louisiana, the dancing vowels of Mississippi, the big as God attitude of Texas. I'll buy a drink for Bob Dylan in Tulsa, sing a sobering country song in Nashville, cross myself twice at the Natural Bridge in Virginia, tip my cap to Alice in Arkansas, wink at my old pals on the mall in the District of Columbia, offer a salute to the best Java this side of Charlottesville, say, oh gosh, before the treasures of Asheville, North Carolina. I'll buy a warm sugar-powdered donut on the Gulf of Mexico, demand penance from tornadoes on the ravaged, rickety streets of downtown Selma, take a seat next to Rosa in Montgomery, whisper a sweet nothing in the writing ear of Eudora Welty in her dapple-lit bedroom studio outside Jackson, Mississippi. Watch the parade of color-soaked kites whiz through the windy beach of Treasure Island, Florida. Say grace in the Lord's house in the wake of the death of a loved one in Sarasota. Head out to the mournful cemetery on the edges of light, bowing to the end of day just on the outskirts of town. The sundowns of midwinter, crossing time zones, looking into the infinity of roads, the dazzle of passing flanks of impossible clouds, of cowering trees and davening branches in our astonishing automobile ride across the bounty of the American South.
What bounty in that poem. It's just full of, I don't have to go now. I can just read your poem.
There you go.
It's a great, yeah, it's a great list poem. In a list of things and the travels, and there's great movement in the poem. So I envy your trip and that poem, actually.
Well, I mean, I read it after I wrote it. I didn't look at it for a few months. I said, I managed to pretty much get every place we went to.
That's
Wow.
a good trip. Well, you're going for a month. Wonderful,
Yeah,
wonderful. Jan, would you read one of your flash fiction pieces?
Okay.
Read?
Well, I'm going to read a flash fiction story called Everyone's Moon. Flash fiction is, to put it simply, it's fiction stories that are under 1,000 words.
Mhm.
Very short stories. And To that end, you have to tell a story in a very short space. Do you want me to just read it and then we can talk a little bit
Sure.
more about what flash fiction is?
Yeah.
So this is called Everyone's Moon, and it was published in the Girls Right Now anthology a few years ago, which is an organization that I was involved with. It also won an honorable mention in a contest sponsored by an organization called Women on Writing. And it too, with the South, interestingly enough, in this case, a Southerner who's come to New York. So I came as a certain kind of immigrant to the big city lights, bearing my mother's memories. Everything in New York is painted with glitter. Even the moon is bigger and brighter than anywhere else, she promised me before I left home in Arkansas. My mother had run off to Manhattan herself once and danced with the Rockettes. Now, in the copy edit corner where I sentenced commas to oblivion and stalked renegade hyphens in celebrated writers' stories, I wore dresses with sprinkles of sequins, dresses just for New York. Why did you leave? I'd asked my mother often. She had no answer except I didn't have a lease. On a certain balmy evening in October, I purged the last comma and decided it was a fine night to walk to my illegal sublet. That was when I saw it, the moon of my mother's dreams, a golden topaz moon, full and worldly wise, grazing the skyscrapers like a penthouse no one can afford, bigger than anyone's dreams. Someone tugged my sleeves. I looked down at a woman only as high as my chin, stooped and grizzled. She wore a coat held together with pins and carried a tote bag with a hole in the bottom. Check out that moon, missy, she screeched. The moon had paused, as if waiting for me. Wow, awesome, I said. I was conscious that when I said wow, it came out, wow. Thank you, she smiled, open mouth, stinking of tooth decay. This is my home. I painted my ceiling. I mixed the palette, oils, not acrylics, a little harvest gold and ochre and pink. I pulled out $1. She waved her hand at me. No, 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 she insisted, as if warding off a hex. The light changed, but I stayed in place the way tourists do, gazing up. Check out that moon, I heard her screech again. She was tugging on someone else, a man in a dark suit as impeccable as birthright. I saw the man look up. Beautiful, he said.
That's Jan Alexander. I love the way it goes from you're some kind of immigrant, which is a strange thing to say, I guess. And to your mother, I say, oh, she danced with the Rockettes. Now, if you're from, that's a pretty big deal to dance with the Rockettes. That doesn't just happen to everybody who has these for a year or two.
Sure. This is fiction, by the way. My mother was never a Rockette.
Well, I love it. And then it goes to this, to you and this woman. There's something magical about her. Could you talk a little bit about her?
Okay. Well, I think, you had, when we talked before, you had mentioned that there's a bit of a use of magical realism in this story.
Yes.
And I find myself doing that a lot, incorporating some kind of element of magical realism. I think the narrator, I mean, she's an ordinary person, but she's observing the world in a kind of, in a way in which she's looking for some kind of magic. She's been promised that, more or less, that New York would be that way, and she finally finds it. But one thing about magical realism is that it is both magical and realism, and it's grounded in the real world. And I was consciously in this story trying to bring in, some seriously grim realities, not just a boring copy editing job, but also a homeless person who's there, stinking of tooth decay and in a tote bag that can't even hold things because the bottom is falling out. And yet, even more than the narrator, this homeless woman manages to tell stories to herself in which she's the center of she's the center of the world. We all tell stories to ourselves in
Yeah.
which
I kind
we're
of
the center of
believed
the
it though.
world.
I thought she was the center of.
Oh, yes. Well, I mean, when she said it, you believe it. You know, she sees herself as both an artist and a salon hostess, sort right there on the street, including everyone and bringing people together. I guess that's something magical realism can do. It can bring this is a story that can bring people together at a time of divisiveness.
Thank
Uh,
Thank you for that, Jan. That's great. And thank you for Bruce reading Travel South. And you are listening to Planet Poet, Words in Space on WIOX Community Radio. I'm your host, Sharon Israel, and I'm here with writers Bruce Weber and Jan Alexander, here to discuss Whirlwind, the 2025 Hudson Valley New Year's Day spoken word performance extravaganza, which they will present in Saugerties, New York at the local. And it'll be a whirlwind, and it was probably a whirlwind putting this together. It's still going on for the
it
next
is.
few days.
Yes, it is. I wanted to mention, because people don't often get the credit, because at the beginning of the event, I always make a short speech and thank people. But, people are in and out. They always don't know. But, I always have asked people to help curate. And the idea is that, particularly if you try to change up your curators, you're going to reach other people who might be out there that might not know about the event or just haven't been invited. So I just want to mention the curators this year, all from, as few as 4, 5, or 6 to as many as 15. Robin Hager, who's also on the staff, who runs a series called White Noise at Green Kill. Allison Koffler, who's on the staff, who's a poet.
Fine poet.
Right. Daniel Villejas is a performer, hip hop poet, musician, who's helped curate this year. A new curator, Charles Dennis, who used to run a major program at PS 122 in the city. And Charles, I asked him to curate this year. Sam Truitt,
Yes.
who's involved here in publishing and poetry, and he's helped, and he's also hosting an hour. Philip Levine, who is a poetry editor of Chronogram and runs a series at the library in Woodstock, who's going to actually host 2 hours, the first and last. And Joanne, my wife, Joanne Pagano Weber, she curated this year. And also the staff comes up with names. And then when I get the list from everybody by October 15th, I do the rest. And I guess I get around 30 or 35 people, something like that. So that's how it's put together. And we start the selection of the curators. It could be even as early as the spring of the year, of the following year. So people know, and they know they have a date, and they have to get it to us. And so if things aren't done in a certain order, it wouldn't work as well. So
the curators, each curator gets about.
I give them a number of people to do. I try to keep it easy to not really more than 5 to 7. And then they just have to get all the contact information to me by the middle of October. And then I know who's on. When I know who's on, I can pick the other people who haven't been on.
I see.
We keep our eyes open. Even now, if somebody was out there and really wanted to perform, we try to put them in. Of course, so.
Yeah, that's and Jan, so when Bruce gets the names from the curators, and then how do you come into this?
I just help along with everyone else who is helping with the coordination of it. But we all contact some people and try to get performers there, and pull the names together, and we work on getting setting time slots for everyone and coordinating this massive number of performers in what's really a short space of time.
Jan, works on the press release too, and getting it out.
Okay, that was a good press release too.
Contacts. So that's one of the things. We have a table where we sell books, CDs, any that anybody's got. 100% goes to the people who bring them there. I know Jan works the table often with Joanne.
Mhm.
So that's another aspect of this, because it's hard for people to necessarily find a place to be to sell their goods,
Yeah,
their
yeah,
wares, to show off their talents. Your books are hard to even get placed often in bookstores.
sure.
So this is a way for people to look at people's work or people they don't know and support them.
It's like almost a pop-up bookstore because it's a lot of, the money is
Yeah.
involved and it's,
Pop-up bookstore, pop-up
Yeah,
performance
it's
space.
true.
yeah. Herding together like 110 performers is,
Yeah, that's probably the
I
hardest
don't
The
even
part.
city was
know what to
108.
say it. 108?
In the city, it was 180. And
It's
in the city, it was 10 hours.
180.
It
It
was
went
10
all
hours.
day, right?
Two to
How long?
midnight.
I'm sorry,
It went 2 to midnight.
2 to midnight. And here it's from 1 to 7. So,
Yeah, but last year we expanded it an hour. I think it's different here. I mean, in the city, people can take the bus, they can take the train, they can walk if they're nearby. Here, it's you have to basically have to drive, except the people right in the
yes.
village, and there are some who live in the village or close to it, as I do. But I was afraid, and I've been feeling like 7 to 8 seems to be like a difficult time for people in the winter, and you could have a snowstorm or icy roads.
Sure.
So I wish I could do it. I wish I could do 150 to 80 people. I wish I could. They're out there to do. It's just a question of the weather. And in the city, when I did it one year at 1, people didn't show up till like after 2. In the city, I think on New Year's Day, it's different. Here, people were fine getting there by 1.
And staying until past midnight, right? And going out after midnight.
Oh yeah, we used to go out to dinner like 2:30 in the morning, but
Everybody was a little younger then too, I think.
yeah.
So in the city, why did you start the alternative day?
Originally, and this is 1995,
Hmm.
31 years ago.
Yeah, that's what
It
you
was
said.
really in major part because there is a New Year's Day event at St. Mark's Church in the Bowery that
Hmm.
began in 4 hours, although we're catching up, and it's still there. I just had a feeling that it was basically to encourage a whole other generation of writers, and there were so many people that the church couldn't even invite.
Hmm. Hmm.
They had their own limitations. So it opened it up. And I thought we'd just do it 1 year, but it was so successful and the mood was so great and so positive that I've had to do it every year since. I had no choice. It was like, oh my God, I have to do this, I guess. I wasn't
How
planning to do it.
how many people showed up the first year?
It was packed. It was packed. The room was packed. Over 100. Maybe, we had people all day. Standing room only. It was just very rewarding. I still remember it, and I just couldn't believe it.
How exciting. It's so exciting. So that's 31 years of doing this. And I hope you can do it for a long time.
1 year at a time. It's hard. It's also hard to find a place that will allow you to do it for free, to be honest.
Sure.
I don't know what we would have done this year. I think that we've probably done, and it's since we do it for free, and people on the staff have to sometimes take their own personal fundings to do this, to some expenses. So it having been able, we were always able, except for 1 year. We did it at Dixon Place 1 year. We did it for 10 years. We did it at the New Eureka Poet Cafe for 5 years.
Mhm.
It started at a place called Cafe Nico on Avenue A between 6th and 7th Street. And then we did it at the Knitting Factory.
What venues? All these venues.
Yeah. So our big home was Cafe Nico and the Bowery Poetry Club. That was a fantastic place. And, we've always had a set. And
Is that the
Joanne
first year you did it the first year at Cafe Nico? Was that the first year?
which it was a big loft space above the Pyramid Club, which I think I heard the Pyramid Club closed, that we did it for the first 5 years.
And so did the knitting factory is no longer there.
Right there in
Doesn't
Brooklyn. Yeah,
exist anymore.
when we first did it, they were on Leonard Street. They had moved from Houston to Leonard. We did it there. We did it there in 2001.
Wow.
And we did, and it was near where, it was January 1st, 2002.
It's almost it's like a history of performance spaces and performances in the city.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true.
Amazing.
Yeah, CBGB's is gone, of course. So,
The Mud Club is gone,
yeah.
but other places arise.
Yes. So, no, it was, the idea was when moving up here, I thought, oh, I'd love to move it up here to do the same kind of opportunity that we gave people in the city to get people together. And, there's networking and people don't see
Sure.
each other in a while. They can go out and have a cup of coffee or something to eat, or, it's a gathering place and for people to just enjoy good things as the year comes in.
Especially Saugerties, such a nice town. And Jan, you have a house in Saugerties too,
I
right?
do, yes.
How did
yes.
you pick Saugerties? I'm curious.
How
Now
did
it's like one of the greatest places to live in America.
I know some of us just stumbled onto it. I was looking for a house in the Hudson Valley, and Saugerties was high on our list, but not absolute. And really, it was just a matter of finding the right house at the right price, and it happened to be in Saugerties. But it has really come up a lot, just in terms of being a place where things are going on. My husband and I bought our house in 2007, and it was a pretty sleepy town at the time.
Not anymore. Not because of the Whirlwind, the
Yeah.
Extravaganza going.
Suzanne Bennett has been,
Yeah.
big instrumental person up here with Shout Out Saugerties. When she started doing it, there was nothing. Really.
Absolutely.
Teresa Giordano had a series at Inquiring Mind, a reading series,
Mhm.
I remember, and there was that really helped stir stuff up. I was involved with that. Joanne's been involved with that. So we've done it for a little over 2 years. It's almost always the first Tuesday of the month at 7 p.m. at the 9W Diner, which is right outside the village as you go from Saugerties to Kingston.
Mhm.
It's called Dialogues for the Ear and Eye. Joanne had started a series on Rivington Street back in the mid-90s, which was a writer, a visual artist, and a musician. And for years, she wanted to redo it. She wanted to bring it back. And then through contact we had through the Jane Street Arts Center, the owner of the gallery, welcomed Joanne to do a series, and she and I talked, and I said, let's do it together. So we've been doing it for over 2 years now. And it's multidisciplinary, and after the performers go on, we have a question and answer period where the performers themselves ask questions of one another, and the audience does. And
That's fun.
if people who are listening haven't been there, come. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun, and it's kind of a revelation in a way. What happens? It's all the art form, all these 3 art forms kind of merge, and something else emerges.
Yes,
about
something
process,
else. Yeah, and something else emerges. And it's called the 9W Diner because it's en route 9W, I imagine.
That's
Yes.
right.
Yeah,
It's right by the IXL gym and the Walgreens over there.
I like the mystique of the 9W Diner. Though. It sounds real good. So Bruce and
Sounds like
Jan,
something out of a story, doesn't it?
yes, absolutely.
What's that?
It sounds like something out of a story.
So
Right.
Bruce and Jan, please read another piece. Okay, Bruce, you want to start?
Okay.
Read another poem from
Yeah.
what is it?
Yeah.
Swoon of the South?
I
or
should also mention
Southern Swoon?
this is a poem I wrote sort of one of the first days going south, but it doesn't isn't a southern, it isn't about the South, but just the address for the event is 16 John Street.
Okay, for
Because
the
people might want
extravaganza.
to be more exact than it. This is called I Like Being a Poet. I like being a poet. I like being a poet. No canvases and paints to carry to the sea. No standing bass to lug on the crowded subway. No stage required to anchor my theatrical sense and sensibility. I can write under an open parasol, gazing at a woodcut of a big wave by Hiroshige, or scribble nonsense rhymes in a tumult of broken memories. I'm free to linger on an apostrophe or dangle in the air like a paper plane caught in a crossfire of wind and humidity. I can dance across the page like Fred Astaire, my shoes never touching solid earth, my mind racing past the lifeguards of truth and honesty, like an adventurer on the high seas or a blind cane tapper begging for coins on the 7th Avenue local. I can do all of this with barely a chagrin or a riddled sphinx-like stare in the heart of the jungle. You can find me any day of the year before a smorgasbord of letters and scents and colors, shifting back and forth on a perilous walk across the gangplank, a poet of high seas and tremulous swims in rough waters, rowing my way home with a pen and paper opened to all things.
That's lovely. That's Bruce Weber reading his poem, I Like Being a Poet. And I just love the Hiroshige, who's a wonderful Japanese artist. And he has his most famous piece is with a giant wave. And then you bring back the waves and the poet on the high seas and the rough waters. I love the way you connect those, Bruce. Thank you. Jan, your turn.
Okay, well, I will read another flash fiction story that's kind of perhaps a bit of a melding of flash fiction and prose poetry, although I don't consider myself a poet. It's called The American Woman, and it's an ekphrastic piece, which is coming up as of December. It is on a website called ekphrastic.net, which is which is actually the website for the Ekphrastic Review, which is
Yes.
self-explanatory. This piece accompanies a painting by my friend Harriet Foreman Barrett that's called The American Woman. And so again, we're combining visual and verbal. And her painting, which it will be up on ekphrastic.net, shows a kind of abstract of a woman draped in many different fabrics, which to my mind represented so much of America, the flag, but the many different nationalities and the many different cultures that make up the fabric of America. To begin, I was born with a silver spoon of Jell-O to bite, while the outlaws galloped across my TV screen, kicking up golden sand. The land of living color beckoned, and I drew it myself in 150 Crayola hues. I etched in future mates, a cowboy on a roan stallion, a white knight hopping over moon craters. No, 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 my mother said. Don't you want to roam the range and walk on the moon yourself? I did. So I drew a portrait of America turning on its own axis. I sprinkled it all with glitter. That too made my mother frown. Let's go for a ride, she said. We took off in the alabaster Chevy and knocked on the door of two brown-skinned sisters. Their house was ashen gray, the floors bare cement. It was so stark, it made me cry. Then the sisters handed me a sign, and we marched through streets with neon lights. We marched to a pink dawn sky. We trampled through fields of grain. We crossed the Rockies and watched the sunset over Malibu. People pelted us with curses, but also with fists held high. The colors of their skin, their eyes, their words were like nothing I could find in my Crayola box. They wore stars and stripes. They wore saris, patchworks, feathers, and beads. They wore slogans and satin. They lived in castles and they lived in caves. They drank champagne and they starved on the street. I stole diamonds on Park Avenue, found a pawn shop in Albuquerque, and fed a Chinookan village. The next time I drew America, it was a self-portrait. I think there will be more because I'm still discovering colors.
That's great. That's Jan Alexander reading her flash fiction piece called The American Woman. And you've got everybody in there.
Everyone.
And it's an ekphrastic poem.
Yeah.
And your mom appears again, a fictional mother, but she's here giving you instructions.
I don't always have mothers. I don't always have sequins or paintings in my fiction, but there you have it. It seems to be a running theme today.
And it is very much like a prose poem, which is very lyrical and doesn't necessarily have a plot, but yours moves in a plot, like in a narrative, but with beautiful lyric imagery.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Jan, and thank you, Bruce. And our time is almost up, and I just want you to tell everybody again about the Extravaganza. It's going to be at the local, which is at 16 John Street in Saugerties. Tell us more about it. That's going to be from 1 to 7 on New Year's Day.
Yes, it's 1 to 7 on New Year's Day. People always ask, "Oh, I'm not on the program, but I want to read." I advise you to come. We don't know when we'll allow people in because you never know if all the technical stuff the seating is all set. But I would assume by about 1:45, and then you can put your name on a list, and at some point your name would be called. They have a beer and they have a wine and beer there. There's some food. There's food in the neighborhood. It's just a warm, very inviting space, and they've done a remarkable job. And I think everybody will enjoy it. I just think it'll just be an enjoyable day. You may find yourself. The one thing about having 3 minutes is it's just one person after another, and you're surprised all the time. And I basically put all the names in a pot, literally. I've used this pot all the years. I cut everybody's name up and I throw it in there and I pull it out. And then I have all the sheets for the hours, each sheet. And I'll just put one down there and one there and there and then look at it. The only thing I try to do is to arrange boy-girl. I try to do a boy-girl order, not have a pocket of all men or all women.
Right. It's very John Cage. It's very John Cage of you.
Yeah,
what a chance,
Yeah. And that's the thing, you could have one kind of poet and then a different. You just don't know what you're going to find. And 3 minutes allows that to happen because magic happens.
And that magic and just one after another, it creates almost like one huge piece that incorporates everything.
It's a great place to discover. Just to discover new poets, new musicians you didn't know of.
A lot of musicians. I think that's because of our series, because we have musicians, so we've gotten to know musicians, and they've enjoyed, I think, doing something with us. And they wanted to come back because it's harder for musicians to do 3 minutes.
Very hard.
Plug a piece of equipment often, whatever. So
it makes you concentrate to do that, to create a 3-minute piece.
Yeah, one of our musicians, I ran into her the other day, and she did a Carolyn Morosi. She wrote a song for last year's, and she took upon it as a challenge, and she just has put it out. I don't know where everyone gets to hear it, and she played it at an event for the Saugerties Arts Commission the other night. And she said, 3 minutes, 3 minutes. I'm going to do something 3 minutes. So it's plenty of time to say something. It is.
And you want the participants and the audience to, if they can, bring donations of books, new and old, fiction and nonfiction, hardcover and paperback for the Green Connect Correctional Facility. and non-perishable food, beverages, and toothbrushes or toothpaste for the
Yes.
Saugerties Food Pantry. So it's going to be New Year's Day at the local, 1 to 7. Everybody's invited. And thank you so much, Bruce Weber and Jan Alexander, for being on the show. And thank you for your work for Whirlwind and for your beautiful writing.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
us.
Great to talk.
Great to talk to you too. And thank you all for listening.